have always hated being watched. Not in the normal way. Not the kind of awareness you get in a crowded room. I mean the feeling that something is fixed on you. It started when I was 6. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw a face in my doorway. It wasn't moving. Just a man standing there, half lit by the hallway light. His eyes locked on mine. I remember how still he was. How he stood in the doorway like he had always belonged there. Watching me without a single flicker of surprise. He held my gaze for a long time. Long enough for the silence to feel wrong. Before my mother came running down the hallway. Later, she told me a man had tried to break in. That he'd been testing doors and had slipped inside before she scared him off. But what stayed with me wasn't the fact that he had been in our house. It was the way he stood there in the dark, eyes wide and unblinking, as if he had been waiting to see me. After that, I noticed eyes everywhere, in the dark corners of rooms, in the gaps between closet doors. So when my friend suggested camping, I told myself it was time to stop being ruled by something so childish. Trees and darkness don't watch you. Fear is the only thing that controls you. The first day in the forest was almost peaceful. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, breaking into soft, shifting patterns on the ground. The air felt so clean from what I was used to. I felt foolish for ever thinking the woods could be threatening. That night, as the fire burned low, I thought I saw someone standing between the trees. Just for a second. A silhouette had vanished when I focused on it. My friend said it was just a trick of the light. I laughed along with them. But in the back of my mind, I thought back to the man who broke into my childhood home. In my tent, I laid awake, listening to the small sounds of the forest. Winds and leaves, insects clicking, a distant branch snapping. Then something else, quieter, a soft rhythmic sound, like breathing. I told myself it was my own breath. When I turned onto my side, the thin fabric wall of the tent glowed faintly with moonlight. For a moment, I thought I saw 2 darker circles there, perfectly spaced. I squeezed my eyes shut, counted to 10, and opened them again. Nothing was there anymore. The next day, I felt tired and foggy. At the lake, I caught my reflection in the water and flinched. My own eyes looked wrong, too dark, too large. For a moment, they didn't seem to move when I did. That afternoon, while hiking, I kept seeing movement in the corner of my eye, just behind the trees. It was always gone when I turned fully, always positioned as if it had been watching the trail, waiting for me to look away. The rest of the week, I tried to act normal. We cooked over the fire, swam in the lake, joked about how dramatic the woods felt at night. Sunlight made everything seem harmless again. The trees were just trees. The shadows were only shadows. At one point, I told my friends what I'd seen. About the breathing I'd heard. The shapes I thought I'd seen in the dark. The way the tent wall had seemed to move at night. They laughed gently, not unkindly, but in the way that meant that they had already decided I was wrong. "You scared yourself," one of them said. "This place messes with your head." "Yeah," another one added. "You've always had that thing about eyes. Your brain probably filled in the blanks." I nodded, pretending their explanations made sense. But as they spoke, I couldn't stop watching them. Their eyes held mine a second too long. When someone blinked, it felt delayed, like they had to remember how. Their pupils looked too dark in the daylight, swallowing the color around them. And when they laughed, their eyes didn't change with the expression. They stayed fixed, studying me, as if they were waiting for something. For a moment, a terrible thought crossed my mind that I didn't let myself finish. That whatever had been watching me at night was practicing during the day, learning how to look human. I looked down at my hands, at the dirt under my nails, and told myself I was being paranoid, that fear had a way of making things look connected when it wasn't. By the final night, the feeling of being watched had sunk deep into me. It didn't feel like one person's gaze anymore, but many, coming from all around. It was as if the forest itself had become aware, and was silently taking note of every movement. At night, the knots in the tree trunks started to look like eyes. Some were wide and round, others thin and stretched. I told myself it was just my brain finding patterns that weren't really there. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to look at them for long. When I laid down in my tent, I found it hard to fall asleep. When I finally drifted under, I dreamed I was standing in a room with no walls and no ceiling, just endless darkness in every direction. Faces floated in that darkness, arranged in long, uneven rows, as if seated in an invisible audience. They were pale and unfinished. All of their facial features were blurred, except for their eyes, which were perfectly clear and impossibly bright. All of them were turned towards me. I tried to look away, but whenever I turned, more faces waited, their eyes following with slow, patient precision. None of them blinked. None of them moved. It felt as though time itself had stalled, trapped in the space between one breath and the next, and I was the only thing capable of motion. I woke suddenly, heart pounding, with the unshakable certainty that something was just outside my tent, standing in the same silent, unblinking way. I could feel the direction of its attention, like warmth from a body, standing too close. My throat tightened. Slowly, I lifted my hand and pressed it against the tent's fabric. Something pressed back. Not hard, just enough to confirm it was real. I pulled my hand away, shaking. My mind scrambled for explanations. A deer, a raccoon, a man. That was a thought that almost calmed me. A man could be reasoned with. A man could be scared away, like the one from when I was a kid. I unzipped the tent and stepped outside, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam sliced through the dark, moving over the trees, the bushes, and the empty spaces where I expected someone to be standing. No one was there, but the feeling of being watched stayed. When I swept the light across the forest again, I noticed small points of reflection at different heights, some near the ground, others far above. They caught the light and held it in a way that didn't look like animal eyes. They didn't move. They didn't blink. I couldn't make out any faces or bodies around them. No shapes at all. They were only eyes. And in the stillness that followed, I felt a change in the air. The way you can sense when someone steps closer without making a sound. I thought of the man in the doorway when I was 6, of the way his gaze had held mine without blinking, and I finally understood that my fear of eyes was never about being watched. It was about what happens when you look away. Thank you for watching. The story was inspired by a trip I took recently where I felt the same exact unease at night. So goodbye for now, but not forever.